Hello, 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 if you are just tuning in. So, my name is Lana. Welcome to my channel. I'm here to uplift, support, inspire, and hopefully it will empower you through my personal life experiences and the wisdom that life has taught me. So, here I am in all my feels, in all my feels. It has been a week of honoring something that I'm not always very good at dealing with, which is grief. Because life has been hitting me from all different angles. You know, I felt I had prepared for this whole explant experience, this transition, this return to my natural body, which in itself, it has been change, major life change, because it was the end of 23 years of living with bigger boobs, you know, a augmentation of my own physical body. And that's a trauma in itself. The trauma of putting them in, the trauma of having them replaced, the trauma of having them removed. It is all trauma. And so the body stores trauma in each and every one of your cells. And that's mental, emotional, and physical. See, the body tells on the mind. So even if it's conscious, unconscious, or stuck real deep in your subconscious, the body is always telling on the mind. It is sharing glimpses into your truth. The body is the best indicator of truth, because truth is something that can only be felt. That's why they use kinesiology to muscle test you, because the mind cannot rationalize when it's stuck in that controlling space. So, with all of my life experiences and all the traumas and all the pains, I've come to the conclusion that it's all serving. There's purpose in your pain. The pain has been my greatest teacher. That even I, as much as I speak, I still don't deal well with grief. Grief and death is something I have kept myself from feeling deeply within, from sometimes being distracted. And you know, I was recognizing this past week that I have been really trying to honor it, really trying to sit in it, sit with it, befriend it, acknowledge the gifts of grief. And most people would see it as, well, it's just pain, and I don't like pain, so let me go feel better, and dismiss it. Hey, I know I'm one of them. What it's taught me is, though, in order to honor and appreciate all the beauty, all the splendor, all the blessings that the pleasure gave you initially, grief is a celebration too. It's just not what we tend to do. We don't tend to celebrate the cycles. We tend to only celebrate those miraculous, wondrous, magical moments. Oh, let's celebrate a marriage. Let's celebrate a birth. But death, we must mourn. Why not celebrate the life? The influence, the contributions that grief is showing you, because grief is revealing to you all that you were willing to receive, all that you became attached. It shows you what you value. It reveals what you loved. It reveals how badly you didn't want to let go, how much it impacted your life. That's what grief is. It's one of our biggest teachers, but yet we don't want to face it. We often want to dismiss it, dissing our own ease, in disbelief, rejecting the grief. But the heart, it knows better. The mind will try to distract you. I've had so many friends say how they have overactive minds. I know I'm one of them. I understand. I myself deal with an overactive mind. And you know, when I sat with it this morning and I was in deep reflection, I was like, what if? What if your overactive mind is simply avoiding the grieving process? What if it's trying to protect you? See, it doesn't worry about keeping you happy or making you feel good. It's all about protecting you. So the mind will try to protect you in a way that runs away. Consider that. The mind will protect you in a way that causes you to run away. And instead of honoring the process, honoring the grief that's arising, it's actually causing more pain. It's causing more suffering. Because the more we run, we try to hide, suppress it, it doesn't help heal it. You have to feel it to heal it. The heart knows, because what's affected most? When the mind's trying to dismiss it, it's the heart that's hurting most. The heart is the one that needs to be honored. The grieving process. It knows. It knows it's necessary for your soul's evolution and your growth. That's why it's a soul. Think about it. Solute on. It's an honoring. You must salute your grief for your soul to evolve. There's beauty in your pain as much as the pleasure. That the deeper you go in to enjoy, to appreciate life fully, the deeper you're going to feel the grief. Because sometimes we get so attached to things, we don't want to let go. The more we hold on, the more it hurts. And that's what shows us contrast in life. It affords us that opportunity to recognize, oh wow, nothing is certain but change. Nothing is permanent. It's ever fleeting. It's finite. And when you recognize that you have to let go, even because we think we can hold on to control it, you have to learn to discern and learn to let go for the unpredictability of life's flow. So you have to learn to let go for the ever unpredictability of life's constant flow. The only way to grow is to go with the flow. Because when we try to resist something, it makes it more painful. It is what causes our suffering. Because a resistance is no different than an attachment. The not wanting to let go doesn't make it easier. It actually makes it harder. The pain cuts deeper. The honoring, the appreciating, the being with what is, that's what life is about. Treasuring the gifts of grace and not so grace. Because life is. Life is. Whatever is presented to us is a gift for us. How we respond or react shows us where we're at. The more we grieve, it reveals to us how deeply we loved, what it is we truly value and care about. You can't deny that pain doesn't have purpose. And when we honor and sit with that pain, it's humbling. It's humility at its finest. that we're human. And it teaches us. It teaches us about ourselves. It reveals to us our resilience, our strength. It builds strength. It builds character. It builds grit. It builds the resilience. And even for myself, that has been a theme in my life. Is life doesn't just hand me one major life change. It just goes full on in and says, here's a whole bunch of stuff. We're going to hit you from all different angles. This isn't my first time having had several things coming at me from all different directions. But I knew and I felt something big was going to happen. I didn't know. I wasn't prepared. And the more I sat with it, I realized, I can't get upset at how, but just know that everything happens for a reason. It always has in my life. That looking back, I see, oh, okay, that's what that was about. It was preparing me for the next step. But you can't try to rush past the grief. You can't try to deny it, distract yourself from it, because it will come up in waves and cycles as life is. And it's all beautiful. That's the irony. It's all beautiful. That's the essence of life. The essence of life that is fully and richly felt and appreciated and experienced. It's the beauty that affords us all these beautiful opportunities. There is this color, this myriad of experiences that we have to go through in order to recognize that we're never in the black or the white. We're in it all. We can try to choose something, but it's like this beautiful melange of experiences, of emotions, of just experiences. It's the attention we give to them, the focus, the energy that makes them bigger or smaller. The contrast that shows us what we like or dislike. The significance, the impact, the bigger or smaller. Because a lot of times we only notice what it is we truly what really truly matters most to us when it's gone. We don't normally always appreciate what is right there until we've lost it. I know. We neglect so much. We fail to sit in gratitude more than we do in the hindsight, the awareness of what we had rather than what we have. Think about that. What do you think grief is about? Showing you what you maybe weren't appreciating to begin with. How much gratitude do you have for what you have? And how much grief do you have for the things you wish you had been more appreciative of when you had them? Grief affords you that opportunity to reflect and go, wow, I didn't appreciate it as much as I would have had I known I was going to lose it. Or maybe I need to be more grateful for the things I have as a result of the things I've lost. Boy, grief is one of your biggest teachers. Because if it wasn't for the contrast of what you have and what you've lost, you may not realize what you want more of, or what you don't want again. That's what contrast affords us. When we have it, we should appreciate it, because it's fleeting, it's finite. When we don't have it, then we recognize, wow, can I get it again? Of course. Why wouldn't you have something similar? But you'll never have the same. Nothing is going to repeat itself. It may feel similar, but there is no duplication. There's just continuation. And it's up to you to create your life, your reality, what you anticipate you create, on the negative and the positive. So you may say, oh, I don't want this or I don't want that, but you're bringing that onto you, because where attention goes, energy flows, and you will draw it to you. Whereas if you say, I want this, it's a more direct route. Don't focus on the negative. Focus on what it is you want to draw to you. The more you give it your attention, the more it will come to you. But also recognize, if you're thinking and speaking in terms of the future, that it'll take longer to get to the present. The gift is in the present. Being with what is, not with what was, or could be, or may be. If you're not present, you're losing the gift. And that's what grief teaches us. Try not to be stuck in the past or fearful of the future. That grief is simply your mind unable to be with what is. It's trying to protect you from what has been. It has no idea what will be. Your mind wants to control, which means it needs to know based on what it's known. But the mind can't know what it doesn't know. You have to learn to trust and feel into your heart more. Because that's what life is. Trust. No matter what, even if you're someone who doesn't think you can trust, you still have to trust. The only way to move forward is to trust. Putting one foot in front of the other, you have to trust. Walking out the door, you have to trust. Life is about trust. Trust should come from within, not be contingent upon the externals. Life is uncertain. Life is in constant motion and ever-changing. That's the one thing you can always rely upon, that change is constant. But the only reason we ever notice certain changes is if they're really impactful upon our lives. Until they really impact us, a lot of things we don't notice. The whole world is constantly changing around us, but we're not noticing that. We're noticing the things in our immediate life. Okay, if we're watching the TV, you're externally putting your energy elsewhere. But the reality is you notice what happens in your life more often if you're being honest and present. If you're not present and you are fixated on the externals, outside world stuff that doesn't affect your life, that is usually when you get caught off guard the most. Because you're not being present to the gift of your life. Are you living your life? Or are you caught up in the stories outside of yourself that don't even affect you? This is where we're at as a collective. And that was what I sat with realizing this morning, was like, you know what? What I'm experiencing individually, it is what is occurring collectively. And most people don't even recognize that you're grieving. I'm depressed. I have anxiety. What do you think those are? Symptoms of grief. Symptoms of the inability to accept the changes in your life, to honor when your life is not going to be the same, or relationships have gone, deaths have occurred. Relationships are the big one right there. Work, career change, moving. Little subtle things sometimes as a routine habits, changes in your routine in your daily life. Most people don't recognize that as a grieving, but it's all impactful. So if you think you suffer with depression or you suffer with anxiety, don't take on that label. Ask yourself, what is it I'm grieving? What am I feeling the loss of? The need for? Those are symptoms of grief. Deep rest, depression, deep rest, going within. Something is no longer. The past is not now. It's no longer present. Anxiety, fear of the future. What will be? Undetermined, unpredictable. But anxiety tries to predict based on the past. That's the way the mind works. You cannot make up the future unless you work on creating it. You try to hide, you can't hide. You can't hide from yourself. You're with you 24/7. But that's the key, is unlocking the mind and the thoughts. It's like once you sit and you meditate, oh, that's what's driving me. Those are my programs. That's life. That's your life. And you are the master of your life. So you need to learn to master your mind. Don't let it enslave you. Don't let it imprison you into stories that aren't even true. Breath, slowing down. Becoming present. The more silent, most people can't sit in their own silence. They don't even like being by themselves. Alone with yourself can be kind of harrowing, confronting. I'm fine by myself. Are you? Do you really listen to the thoughts? Do you ever slow down enough to hear, wow, those are the thoughts that run my life? It's like me sitting in bed last night thinking about the grieving process, and really just reflecting that, wow, I'm going through some seriously deep grief. And there's parts of me that I was laying in bed going, I actually do care to a certain degree. I recognize my thoughts that what if my breasts don't get back to the way they were, and someone loving me and seeing me naked, and this is vulnerability. This is what it takes, is courage to be a human. Having conversations with yourself, is that really what you believe? You don't think you're lovable because of some scars, or your breasts aren't perfect like they were? Do you really believe that? Are you really going to let fear dictate how you live your life? You have to confront the thoughts, or they'll rule over you. And if you're not aware of them, they already are ruling over you. They're running the show. That's why meditation is so powerful. Because then you find out, wow, that's how my mind operates. Oh, there goes that crazy mind again. Oh, I see you. I got your number. Not today, Satan. When you are aware, that is when you have the key. And when you have the key to unlock the door, it's up to you to choose to do so. And sometimes we don't do it right away. We become aware, but we don't always do anything with that awareness. Sometimes we sit on it for a while. Sometimes we have to percolate in it, I get it. It's just like saying, oh, I know. Yeah, you know, but have you integrated it? Have you applied it in your life? Have you experienced it? Knowing is nothing compared to the wisdom that comes from integrating and experiencing the knowledge. Just because you know it doesn't make it impactful enough for you. And that's part of grief. You know, you can know you're going to really miss someone when they're gone, but you don't really know until it happens. You know, it's like even leading up to losing Buddy. The house feels so different. I hear noises and think he's there. I sometimes almost put water in his bowl. Or when I'm preparing food, I'm looking for Buddy because he's always wanting to try something. What you got for me? Where's a snack? That's grief. It's knowing the changes to your daily routine and how it will impact you as a result of the loss. Sometimes it's subtle, but sometimes it's not. It's massive. But grief shows how involved you were with your life or not, how aware you are, how much you cared, what you value, what you make a priority. That's what grief teaches. Grief teaches us so much more than we realize. Even like thinking about my mom when I lost her. The idea still that I can't pick up the phone and call her. Things I want to share with her. Things I wanted to do with her. Same thing. Doesn't make it easier. But it makes us realize how much we appreciate them when they're here. And what we truly value and love. Because we're attached to them. It's what makes it so hard to let go. So life is a blessing in all its glorious cycles. Honor your grief, because it wouldn't exist if you didn't care. Honor that. You're human. You have a heart. Don't deny the grief, because that's denying your heart. And when your heart is broken, it needs to heal. Not you running from it, which I've been very good at doing in my life. Very good. I can up and move in a heartbeat, or just act like nothing's wrong. Because I know when I was a child, I had to become an adult early. I had to learn to suck it up, buttercup. I'm not saying somebody said that to me. And there have been a lot of major changes in my life I've had to deal with. Not always fun, in different ways. Not talking about death either. Talking about, when you don't make choices either. That's a great example too. So we're having this massive awakening out there in the world, collectively and individually. Solar eclipse time, people. New moon. New moon changes. Rumbling in. it's thunder's rumbling here too. When you don't choose for you, the shittiest part about life, you can try to hold out and not make a choice. But if you don't make a choice, it will be made for you. And I've learned that lesson in my life more than once. The hardest one was when I was in Italy. Boy, was that out in my face. And anytime I come close to something similar, I'm like, okay. Because I use that as a huge benchmark of where I was up high on the best part of my career anyway. My life was and everything was happening at once then too. That's why I'm saying the theme of my life is it doesn't just happen in one occurrence. It happens in like group It happens in threes or more. At that particular stage in my life, I was at the height of I wasn't at the height of my professional career because I wasn't in the best of my work. But I was still doing well, and I had negotiated where I was. I was still in Italy, which is where I wanted to be. But my career was, it was uncomfortable, it was hostile. My relationship was toxic because I didn't even acknowledge that it was just like my parents at that time. Yeah. If you don't make the choice for you, it will be made for you. And I mean by the divine, by God. The universe will throw in that monkey wrench and say, okay, you can get upset about how it happens, but it was meant to happen. Just like me thinking about how the flea medication that I gave Buddy was on the 15th of March. And I only found the receipt afterward. And I had said to the doctor last week, he started having problems after I gave him the flea meds. And she just brushed it off like, well, his symptoms would have gone away by now. I'm like, but he was still having the same symptoms. And that was on the 16th. I saw the same doctor, same clinic. That was a month later. And I said this to my dad, and I really appreciate what he said back. He said, but if he had cancer, the flea medication just sped it up. So as much as I didn't really want to think about the fact that Buddy was gone, and so it's so easy to get caught up in the details, people. But I don't want to dismiss the fact that he had such a good life. And that instead of allowing him to suffer, I know I made that promise. I would not let him go through that. I would not prolong his life like I did with Angel because I couldn't let go. So we have to see past our own shit sometimes. See past the universe's way of making the choice, making the transition, the end of a cycle. If we look at the delivery, we lose sight of the message. You know, the message is in the experience. It was still going to be a time when the contract would be up, that ultimately in life, if you don't choose, the choice will be made for you. Had I made the choice back then to change my job, to end it, to go into short-term disability, which I didn't even think about at that time, there would have been a whole lot less suffering, and I realize that now. And a lot less finger pointing, even though I was already in a toxic work environment. It would have been nice to be the one who made the choice as opposed to have the choice made for me. That's what I'm saying. And that's where everybody is at in life. If you don't get off your ass and make choices you need to make for you that are right for you, as opposed to enduring struggle and strife or holding out for something better. You know, a lot of people, they're in relationships and they're always looking for someone else to replace the person they're not happy with. I mean, come on, talk about codependency. That's the easiest form, is a relationship. But it's no different than with work, no different than with friends. Really, life habits and routines. If you don't make the choice to change often, and you know it inside of you, often it will be made for you. And that's when it sucks the most. So I say that because in that particular instance, I kept holding out thinking I would find a better job that would keep me in Italy, as opposed to recognizing that the only way I was going to stay in Italy is if I honored me, not stuck it out for that position, for something to hold me there. I could have probably still been in Italy, but I didn't know that at the time. and I wasn't choosing me. And that's the lesson that life will teach you. We're always grieving when it's a major life change. It doesn't have to be a death. It's a transition. It's the loss of a person, place, thing, a routine, your everyday life. Most of the time, I'm just saying that if you don't appreciate it now, boy, you'll find out later if it was really that important to you. Because when it's gone, that's when it shows up, if it was worth it or not. So, with all that grief, I do have good news. I do have good news. So I went to the surgeon yesterday, and there were a couple things I didn't ask, and I realized it a little while ago. I forgot to ask the doctor about some tests that they had run I hadn't heard the results of. So that I can follow up on the phone. But I don't have to go back. My scars are healing nicely. He was really happy about that. He said to make sure that I'm massaging them. He said I can stretch. I can stretch because I told him about my shoulder being a real pain in the ass. He says, make sure you're stretching, you know, because he said, it's not like you're going to injure. It's not like he said, wait 8 to 10 weeks before you really start getting back into anything physical. Now, I do honor and I do trust my body because healing happens in layers, physical, emotional, and mental. What on the surface appears to be fixed and healed, there are still layers below the surface. And that's what I talk about with the grief. You got to be honest with yourself. Just like peeling away the layers for the onion. That just because it looks good on the surface doesn't mean it's good within. You have to tap into and tune into your own heart. So, with that said, yeah, life happens. And you know, with my own breasts, it's like, it's a process. And over time, you know, I put frankincense on them. I put helichrysum for the scarring because helichrysum is really good for scars. And massage because it's good for getting into like the muscles and everything and like bruising. I'm taking Comfrey, Arnica montana, which I also put on topically as a gel, magnesium glycinate, massaging, stretching. Like now I can get a massage. I'm excited about that. Yeah, stretching. We have to learn to stretch ourselves. The more we're willing to open our hearts and let it all in, to feel more, yeah, we're going to feel the pain equally. That's what life's about, is going all in and not holding back. So now that my shield is down, my guard is down because my heart is open and I no longer have implants to shield me. Like, that was another irony with everything. This is how the universe, how God speaks to me. We know you're strong. And we know you can handle a lot. So that's why we throw so much at you at once. But I'm still tender. I'm still human. And one of the ironies about being someone who's strong is not everybody understands that a strong person still needs friends, still needs people to reach out and check on them. You know, like for myself, sometimes I feel alone. And the strong person usually does. Because people think you got it all under control, that, you know, you don't need anybody, you've got it together. And I'm very fortunate that I have people that check on me, but sometimes I do feel like, boy, what is it, only people show up when they need me? People only reach out when they got questions and want my help? Whew. Think about that. Like, do you do that? Are you somebody like that? Do you only appreciate people when they're around for you? Are you there for them? It's another thing to gauge with grief. You know, that's what this past year was teaching me, is that there are a lot of takers and not a lot of people who reciprocate and give back what they get. But see, that's the irony too, is if you don't reciprocate, if you don't appreciate that which is given to you, it will no longer stick around, because it's good favor to return the favor. It's, if you want to have someone continue to treat you a certain way or respond or give you certain things, you need to show them that you appreciate them. If you don't show good favor in return to reinforce their behavior, they'll eventually stop doing what they do, and they may drop out of your life. You may find they see you as a taker and not a giver. That's a lesson in life that's very humbling. And it's not something that everybody's taught, I'm learning. Is there are people who don't even realize, you know, even, I'm not talking about a thank you either. I'm talking about, like, you know, growing up, I used to think, my dad used to say stuff like, you know, nobody ever, my mom and my dad used to have those old things of, you know, nobody ever does anything for free. Everybody expects something in return. Well, you know what? Life is transactional. And for one good favor, there should be the return of good favor. And I'm not talking about it in a resentful way either. I mean it in a humbling way, like, you know, that person, they took care of you once. They may need you one day too. You know, we're not talking about always money either. We're talking about actual humans being good humans to one another. Like, I need help. Where are my helpers? Somebody's always giving you advice. That doesn't mean they want advice in return, by the way. If you're somebody like me, it's funny how, I was thinking about this the other day. Somebody reached out. Not going to call people out because I don't do that. But I get DMs in my Facebook all the time because of Ridiculously Authentic. If you're someone who's followed me for a very long time, people reach out to me all the time asking for advice, asking for free consultations, but they don't see it that way. They're the ones that sent me the long story of their lives, the long message. And not everyone is recognizing what I'm going through, apparently. I was like, wow, you know, you just dropped in my DMs and you got all your laundry list of stuff that's going on, and I'm so sorry you're going through what you're going through. Like, people don't recognize how revealing they are of their character. And I'm sharing this specifically because there's a point where I will also respond, and sometimes what I will respond with is my rates. And some people feel insulted by that, or they're caught off guard, like, oh, you mean I have to pay? I'm like, wow, clearly you felt entitled to me, that you sent me a message, that you wanted my time. You felt you could trust me, or you wouldn't have reached out to me. So don't feel insulted if someone gives you their rates. Recognize, were you trying to get something for free? Because time and energy and wisdom, like, and don't say it's, oh, well, I just wanted to banter back and forth. If someone gave you their time, yeah, not everybody appreciates it unless it's, like, it's not there anymore. And everybody wants something for free. Don't get me wrong. I love to give, and this is what I do. But not everybody recognizes the value that you bring as an individual, as a human. So I say that because it's just been an interesting time for me. That I've had people reach out, and not because of my grief, because of what they're going through. And so when and interestingly enough, when I said I'm going through a lot, it's like, all of a sudden I got advice, and I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I didn't actually solicit advice. And that's what can feel insulting too, is that the person's not acknowledging what you've given them, then they're trying to act like they're giving you something in return. And you didn't ask for it. So, keeping those things in mind. I'm very humble. And I'm still human. And that what I go through, and if I give of my time, it's a lot. And sometimes it's nice to be appreciated and to receive the reciprocal. That often I also need what I give. And not always I listen to what I say. Because what most people don't realize is about 70 to 80% of what you speak is for you to hear. That's conscious communication. Every message I share is meant for myself as well. I share it because it's the drop-ins, it's the wisdom, it's the intuition, it's what spirit reveals to me. And it's through my healing. It's part of my own journey that I share. That I don't feel it's something I should covet. Because when we share, it also gives others the opportunity to recognize, in my experience, my healing journey, my vulnerability in sharing what I'm going through, there is also hope for every one of you out there. That you're not alone. That's why I say I'm here to support, uplift, inspire, and hopefully empower you. That's who I am, that's what I do. And thank God for having had this explant. I'm over that major hump, but I have been going through detox symptoms too, which I was reminded about. Achy pains in joint, stress, grief. And it wasn't just with Buddy, it was also like my whole life. Going through my closet and trying to figure out, what can I wear today? What should I wear today? What feels comfortable? What feels right? Like, how can I, support my boobies in a way that doesn't put weird stuff on the scars? Like, I don't want to put any material across the scars. I want them to be able to breathe. It's an interesting time. That's all I can say. And you're not alone. I know I'm not. Even sometimes when I feel alone, I know I'm not alone. And when the mind goes into deep rest, depression, or anxiety, ask yourself, is it not just grieving? Don't run from it. Don't use labels. Just be with it. It's part of the cycle. It's part of the celebration of life. The mind is the one trying to run, and the only reason it's trying to run, create a story around it, is because it's just trying to protect you from the pain, from the discomfort. That's survival mode. Depression is normal. Just don't live there. Confront it. Like, oh. And go in. Oh, my inner child, what do you need? Parent yourself. Anxiety, is that real? Anxiety's not real stuff either. A lot of times, the mind will concoct the craziest stories about whatever it is. It's up to you to discern the truth from the fiction of your mind. Yeah. This is a beautiful time to be alive. Don't dismiss any of it. Don't downplay any of it. You know, if, yeah, people's characters have been very telling lately. And I'm very grateful for my heightened sense of awareness, because I'm also witnessing people who, in their own discomfort and unhealed wounds, instead of saying, I'm so sorry for your loss, they make it about themselves. And I've had to bite my tongue in a couple cases. But the people have revealed themselves to me. And I'm okay with that. You know why? Because it also establishes the relationships I will and will not have with people. And I know where their place is or is not in my life, if that makes sense to anyone. So if you are grieving and people around you don't understand where you're coming from, don't make it personal and don't take it personal. In many cases, when a person is going through grief, others will feel uncomfortable with your grief. And so their response is telling on them, not of you. Sometimes out of discomfort for someone else's grief, oh, that's okay, you know, this too shall pass. Try to bite your tongue and don't even go there. Don't let it anger you, don't let it upset you, just recognize not everybody's with you. It's your grief, not anybody else's. You don't have to justify it, validate it, explain it. Just be with it. That's part of your process. That's honoring you. Sometimes we think others should understand where we need to understand. If you need to justify, validate yourself, or explain yourself to anyone else, that's not about the grief. That's not even about you. That's your ego. That's your need for attention. That might even be your inner child, actually, seeking attention that you're not giving it. Go within. Ask yourself, why would you do that? Put yourself on display. Other than, why not be the attention giver where you need it? Can you be alone with your grief? Or do you have to be around people to mask it, to hide it, to escape it? Those are all symptoms of avoidance, escapism. I've been there, or I wouldn't recognize it or know it. Grief is something that is not to be taken lightly. That's all I'm saying. So much appreciation for grief. Grief is a teacher. And I'll go over what I wrote this morning and last night. Grief. Enjoy the celebrations of major life transitions. All are beautiful: birth, death, marriage, divorce, relationship status, career change, moving, etc. I have been deeply honoring my grief. Grieving is so revealing of what we're receiving from living fully, the loss of an experience, place, position, status, and or person. It's major life change, transformation. Grieving is freeing. The end of a cycle, because life is fleetingly finite. It's an opportunity to celebrate the love we gave and received. We only grieve what we truly care about. It's what we appreciate. It's what we value, or it wouldn't affect us. If we didn't care so much, we wouldn't grieve. And if we didn't grieve, we would never know the love we'd had. So remember that the next time you're trying to avoid the grievance, avoid the grief, the sensations, whatever's arising, that without the grief, how would you know how much you loved? That's what's revealing in grief. It's exposing the love you gave, that you have still inside you. It's not letting it go. It's honoring it. Change is the only constant in life, yet we only recognize that to which we are so attached when it is no more, because it exposes contrast. Unless it's there, we don't know. What was no more and can no longer be? What was is no more and can no longer be. You have to let go to life's unpredictable flow. Ultimately, grieving is when we integrate those major influences that affected us and impacted us so deeply and contributed to our own growing. What we learned from what we loved and perceived we've lost. Grief is growth. Nothing grows without grief. Think about it. Grief is a powerful gift, an unsuspecting guru and teacher of who and what we loved and valued. Grief is an expression of love. And this is the essence and beauty of life. A life well lived. And so that's what I wrote this morning. And I wrote even more if you check out my posts. Because the truth of the matter is that grief is, it's icky, it's uncomfortable, it's character building, it's testing our strength and our resilience. It's necessary. That was really weird. It's truly a gift. Even when we think it sucks, grief is beautiful too. Just as much needing to be celebrated as the love that is lost or the change that has occurred. So when we go through these changes, these cycles of life, it's humbling, but coming to our knees is how we gain strength, grit, humility, and resilience. And sharing our life experiences remind us we're not alone. And if I can handle it, so can you. And what's healed on the surface doesn't mean there isn't more to be healed on the inside and below in layers. So even like my breasts are going to take time. And I have to honor that too. That's a form of grieving. Yeah, trust. Again, I go back to trust. You have to learn to trust that everything's going to be okay. And it's in the grieving that we grow. I'm just going to keep going back to that. Nothing changes or comes without discomfort in our comfort zone. So this is what I'm expressing. What I'm going through right now is just the beginning for some major changes unfolding. And I already know that. My daily habit, my daily routine, even if I'm sleeping in and I'm laying in my bed and not wanting to get up, whatever it is I'm going through, my routine is different. What I do is different. Yeah. And different isn't bad, people. It's the connotation, it's the meaning we put on it and place upon ourselves that we have to be cognizant of, aware of, selective in our choosing of our languaging, because words cast spells. Don't downgrade, don't dismiss, or reduce yourself and whatever you're going through in this world right now. So, yeah. Hey, listen. The lotus can't bloom or come out without the mud. And I always love the whole metamorphosis of the butterfly. Like, the butterfly has to turn to freaking goo, which is essentially what grief feels like to me. Is like, I am ooey and gooey and tender, and oh my gosh, where's this going? And then it has to build up that strength to flap its wings and become the butterfly, to emerge out of its chrysalis, to present itself and reveal its own transformation and metamorphosis. That's us. We're right there in it. Move. Spooky, scary, but so revealing. Literally. Exposing your vulnerability. And if you're not good with your own rawness, if you can't be courageous and revealing with yourself, ooh, that's got to be tough. The more you're willing to confront your own ish, sit in your uncomfortableness, just be okay with it. Don't dismiss, don't label. That's a gift. It's a gift. It's a present. That's why we're meant to be present in the moment. Don't run from it. You can't hide from it, because it's with you all the time. There's kids outside. I don't normally hear kids outside my window because we don't have any kids on the street. So just remember that grief is fertilizer for our soul's evolution. Think about that. So the soul lutes on. Honor it. Let the fertilizer fertilize you. Grief. Marinate in it. Roll around in it. It's strengthening you either way. The more you're in it, the less you'll be of it, if that makes sense. Being present is what gives you the gift of a well-lived life. The richness, the fullness of feeling it all. You need to be present. And in order to heal, we have to feel. And when you are full on in all of your senses and feeling all the feels, that is enhancing your ability. Your intuition is being heightened. Your spidey senses being sharpened. That when you have that next phase of your life, it's going to be that much richer, that much more potent. That's how I'm perceiving it. The more you can go through the stages of grief as opposed to running away from them, the more life is going to serve you up another platter of beauty, pleasure, on another level. But that's up to you to heighten your senses. Being present now will bring you more of that gift of life. How juicy is that? How beautiful is that? I'm grateful, and I'm always humbled. Sending you all so much love, many blessings. We're getting rain and rumbling on. Life continues. Change is inevitable. How present can you be to the moment, the gift of the now? with yourself. Can run, but you can't hide. I love you. Have a blessed evening.